Tonga's drug problem is on the rise, like a cancer in the community. Government is too slow in tackling the epidemic. The fastest way to stop is to enforce capital punishment. Hello there, my friends. I just wanted to shoot this video real quick. I read an article recently from Tonga. It's called "Drug Lords Will Run Our Government," warns Tonga's psychiatrist. And they're referring to Dr. Mapa Puloka. And this is a growing problem in Tonga. And so I'm just going to read through this article and just see if we can kind of stir up a conversation and see what your thoughts are on what Dr. Mapa's viewpoints are. And maybe you guys have some input. I have a few thoughts, but would love to hear what you guys think as well. So it says, Tonga's drug problem is on the rise, like a cancer in the community, says psychiatrist specialist Dr. Mapa Puloka, who warns that government is too slow in tackling the epidemic and needs to urgently prioritize more funding before it gets out of hand. He issues a stark prognosis. If they can't stop it, we will end up like some of those countries in South America. What will happen is drug dealers or drug lords will run our government and end up being their puppets because of the power of money. Okay, there is truth to that. Particularly, he mentioned South America. There are countries with kind of a historical precedence of this, like Colombia. I know here in Tonga, I've heard that has been the case in some instances. There was a popular little news documentary called Kingdom of Ice that some of you I know have seen. They mention there that there are government people, even church leaders, who have been bought off, so to speak, by drug traffickers, and that influence there. So it really is a shame, but it does happen. You see it in Mexico and South America. It has happened. And Dr. Puloka, he continues, says, the fastest way to stop is to enforce capital punishment. So his argument is for capital punishment. And this, we've seen this primarily take place in places in Asia, like Indonesia. I think Malaysia and Singapore have capital punishment on the books for drug trafficking. And it's kind of a touchy subject in that I think there's international laws that kind of allude to not allowing this to happen, that drug-related crime would not be punishable by death. But there has been, even like President Trump, I've seen give a speech where, people who are involved in drug trafficking could be held to that severe punishment, capital punishment, under certain circumstances. And if you think about it, like El Chapo, for example, in Mexico, he's literally responsible for the death of thousands of people, directly and indirectly, ruining people's lives because of drugs. There is a stark contrast between that and, say, like some, let's say like a 20-year-old world traveler who's on holiday and smuggles marijuana across borders or something like that. If I was to think about it personally, I would take it on a case-by-case basis to see, what kind of impact it would have. It does send a message, I suppose, saying that capital punishment is the end-all result of any kind of drug trafficking. I know in the Middle East, I think in Iran, from what I read, they've executed like close to 1,000 people. I don't know. I don't know about the effectiveness of it. I don't know if it actually, I haven't seen anything yet that proves any kind of metrics that prove that it's effective in keeping out drugs in general. Especially if if you've executed that many people, you have to start asking, well, is this really a deterrent? We're just like killing people. They're trafficking, but there's still people trafficking in drugs. But how do you measure that? It's kind of a difficult thing to assess. It says, Dr. Puloka said, while patients with mental illness triggered by marijuana use have been occurring for a while in Tonga in the 1990s and early 2000s, methamphetamine has a more recent arrival. These are usually aged from early 20s to early 30s, although there have been about 16 patients under the age of 18 over the last 3 years, he said. He said that patients show symptoms of psychosis such as having hallucinations and hearing voices. They use profanity and become dangerous. This is kind of an interesting piece. So I'm from Colorado, and many of you may know that in Colorado, marijuana use is legal, both medicinal and recreational use of marijuana. I haven't seen any real recent statistics on the effects of that, but one thing I was familiar with it, or at least there being kind of a correlation, was that there has been an increase in homelessness in Denver. I'm not sure about other cities, but I don't know about any other crime or mental illness or anything like that. From everything that I've read when it comes to marijuana, any kind of negative things associated with marijuana have been mostly around youth, people under the age of like 25, at least from things that I've read. Anything where it's had an impact on, mental stability, the idea of psychosis with younger people. There is, I have read some evidence that does suggest that. So people becoming schizophrenic or falling into some kind of psychosis as a result of marijuana use in early ages. So that could be the case here. I don't know. Dr. Mapa obviously has been more intimately connected with this than I have been. So methamphetamine, on the other hand, it does seem to be a lot more addictive. Marijuana is actually not physically addictive. I've read that it can be psychologically addictive. But meth, on the other hand, ice is very addictive, and it can be like instantaneous. Like when somebody takes it, like they're hooked. You can see like violent crime here in Tonga. Has been an increase in that, and at least from my friend in law enforcement that I've talked to, that methamphetamine has had an impact on that. Whether from the mental state that people are in when they're using methamphetamine, or from the result of people being hooked on it and committing theft and violent crime in connection with that, because they're trying to get meth, get money to buy meth. While he agrees with some of the government's projects, he thinks funding was wasted on the Papua Park project. Like when the problem of the drugs emerged, that should have taken a back seat and focused on the drug problem, but work is slow. Yeah, I think the park project, I think he may have a point with that. It's nice to have parks and everything, but you do have to question the positive impact that it has on the community to have a park. Whereas if you have task force trying to fight drugs, there's probably a greater priority there. Okay, so I do agree with him in some degree with some of the things that he said in regards to it, being a huge problem and a growing problem here in Tonga. I guess my biggest thing to put in question is whether the death penalty is really the way that it should be addressed. Right now, I think there's 30 plus countries in the world that use capital punishment for drug trafficking. It's kind of it's a touchy subject, and there's different ideas on solutions to this. So myself being from Colorado, at least with marijuana that's been legalized, first of all, I'm not an advocate for using marijuana necessarily. I'm just saying that it's legal in my state where I'm from in America, and I haven't, from what I've read, I haven't seen any extremely adverse consequences as far as violent crime, any major impacts on society in that way. I'm not suggesting that there hasn't been, but I haven't really noticed anything. Methamphetamine is not legal in Colorado. And one thing I will say, though, is that there are countries, I think like Portugal, where drugs are pretty much legal across the board, and they just have a different approach to it. And they put a lot of emphasis on rehabilitation, helping people to be rehabilitated. And I kind of skipped over that in this article here. He says, Dr. Puloka said when parties arrive at the psychosis unit, they're given the cold turkey treatment, where there are no drugs accessible to them, resulting in withdrawals. If we see that withdrawals are too severe, they're given Valium to lessen the severity of the symptoms. it takes probably 3 or 4 days for them to get over withdrawals, and then we start psychosis treatment, he said. This takes around 3 weeks. I have no idea what psychosis treatment is, so I can't make an opinion on that. This takes around 3 weeks for patients to get much better. They are then referred to the Salvation Army to provide rehabilitation to stop their drug addiction. Okay, so this is interesting because the guy I'm aware of in Tonga that headed up the Salvation Army 12-step addiction recovery program was killed, from what I understand, by a 19-year-old boy. Homicide investigation in Ned Cook's death. So the Salvation Army's team leader, Ned Cook, who is 67 years old, died at Viola Hospital on Sunday morning, May 17th, from injuries after he was allegedly assaulted at Maufanga Nuku'alofa on Friday night, May 15th. So we can see that there was a teen charged with the murder here. It says a murder charge has been laid against a 19-year-old youth in the death of Ned Cook, who was allegedly assaulted on Friday night, May 15th on Vuna Road, Maufanga. Okay, so this is a big blow. I mean, I don't know if this was organized. I don't know if this youth was a pawn, if, some drug traffickers, like, paid him, or I don't know. I don't know what's going on there. Man, it's amazing. Gosh, a 19-year-old boy assaulting somebody and ending in death. And my guess is that this couldn't have been a random attack. That's my first impression. I mean, I suppose it could be, but it's unlikely. I mean, why would somebody attack a 67-year-old man unless there was some kind of an agenda behind it? And Ned Cook was somebody who was trying to rehabilitate people from drugs, and he was kind of, somebody who was fighting against the drug trafficking here in Tonga. And I'm sure he knew names of people that were affiliated with drug trafficking here in Tonga. I wouldn't doubt it, at least, since he's been working with those people. So it's pretty scary to think about that. What I wanted to get at was possible solutions, and maybe raise this as a talking point for discussion with you guys. All of the Tongan community here in Tonga, outside of Tonga, in the United States, New Zealand, Australia, primarily, and other places. Think about this. Think about your homeland. Think about what's going on there, and think about what kind of solutions can be made. What kind of influence can we have on the community and on the government to make the right moves. But I'm interested to hear what you guys think. I know in countries, again, like Portugal, where they've legalized drugs, I think there's some good argument for that. I think one downside is people get the perception that it's okay to use drugs because they're legal. I mean, heck, alcohol is legal. Alcohol has probably been the most, here in Tonga, has been, the catalyst for many deaths, many violent crimes at the hands of alcohol, and it's legal here. And I think historically and internationally, alcohol has been the most devastating drug that there is on Earth, historically. And it's legal, and we just accept it as legal because of the cultural norms around it. And I don't see how methamphetamine should be necessarily treated differently. I'm not going to advocate for the use or of legalizing methamphetamine, but here are a few things that I think it would do. If it was legal, you basically you completely eliminate the ability for any kind of cartel or drug trafficking powers like you would see in Mexico or other countries where this has happened, because you completely pull the rug out of the financial stranglehold that these criminals would have, because it's no longer a criminal element. So basically it just becomes ideally what you'd have is a regulated substance at that point, and businesses would be in the business of making it, and they'd have to follow laws and follow tax codes and things like that. It takes the criminal element out of it. So you wouldn't be able to, you would no longer have drug lords controlling people in government. So it would eliminate that problem. What I couldn't guarantee is that it wouldn't. I don't know what the impact it would have on the society of people who are using those drugs. It would be probably comparable to alcohol in a lot of ways. There wouldn't be there'd still be crimes associated with it. There'd still be problems with it in society. You know, there's many things in our society that are harmful that are legal. So that's one argument that I've come up with, that I've seen on the world stage. And I'm just curious what you guys think, and what solutions do you think that we need here in Tonga? It is a growing problem. It's scary. And so I'm just interested to hear your feedback. If you're on Facebook, follow me here. Hit the like button and subscribe if you like the content that I'm creating here. And love to hear your feedback. Thanks so much. We'll talk to you soon.